Welcome to the Hooligan Nation, a KISS-Centric podcast. I'm Anthony.
I'm Rocco.
Welcome to our version of As the KISS World Turns, where we discuss KISS current events, rumors, news, interviews with current and past members. Strap in, crank it up, and let's talk KISS. This week, we're going to discuss Paul Stanley being on, I think it's Artist Friendly, with one of the Madden brothers, and I can't remember which one. I always want to say Benji, and I don't think that's the one, unfortunately.
No,
So the other Madden brother, but the podcast is called Artist Friendly, and I apologize to Benji Madden or his brother.
Wait, did you say Paul did another interview?
Well, you know, that we can slide right into Eddie Trunk. Was it? I think it was like Thursday or Friday. He was kind of. I mean, he wasn't making fun of Paul, but he was saying that he's a professional podcaster at this point. Which I got to tell you, I don't know why Paul doesn't do his own podcast.
You know what? You never know. Could happen some point.
I mean, if Paul Stanley did a podcast, I would absolutely watch it every week.
I would too.
Imagine the guests that he could have on.
That's
Imagine
sure.
Paul Stanley doing a podcast and Gene Simmons being the guest.
Wow.
Imagine Paul Stanley doing a podcast and Ace Frehley or Peter Criss being the guest. Oh my God.
Yeah, the problem is how much he's gonna have to pay him.
But dude, if he ever did that, I bet you he'd have 1 million subscribers
Instantly.
first week.
Yep.
First week. Here we are scrapping for like number 985. He'd be at 1 million first week. Anyhow,
Yeah, and you know what? He wouldn't have to freaking. He'd do the same thing Gene does when he does the concerts. He just instead of showing up with a guitar pick, he just shows up with a hat or something.
Right. Right. I think it would be cool. I mean, think about, well, he could talk about art. He could talk about cooking.
Oh, he's definitely an interesting guy. Like, yeah, I would definitely be
definitely
following that.
Well, but he was on a podcast, Artist Friendly. Of course, I watched it. I actually enjoyed it. You know, I tend to beat him up when it gets too preachy. And he wasn't too preachy on this one. He's very philosophical all the time.
Yeah.
But he was very philosophical in this one without the preach.
Well, and at this point, you kind of want to see which Paul's going to show up on which interview.
Yeah, well, that's true. But before we get to that, I want to go back to the Eddie Trunk thing, because Eddie Trunk.
You know what? Let's go back to the Eddie Trunk thing.
Thanks. He dropped a little something, and the only reason why I want to go back to Eddie Trunk is because Eddie Trunk is not on free radio, so I think a lot of people don't hear Eddie Trunk, and you know, I can't understand why, but a lot of people don't like Eddie Trunk. Personally, I like him.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, he's just, we grew up with him.
Right. Maybe that's part of the reason why. Anyway, Eddie Trunk was talking about Paul Stanley being on a podcast, and funny enough, I guess I don't come up with any original material. That's probably why I have my Tommy Thayer coloring book, because I don't come up with any original material.
Nice.
If you know, you know. Anyhow, and he said that he can't believe that Paul Stanley's on a different podcast every week, and he is, and no one asks him the question of where's Eric Singer. And I don't know if Eddie was in the outing mood, by the way.
Yeah, you know what? You would expect him to have the inside track on what's really going on too.
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying, because Eddie matter-of-factly made the statement, it's about money. It's a contract thing and it's about money. Now, Eddie didn't say, I know this. Eddie didn't say, I'm guessing this, but he absolutely said it's about money. So I have always thought that it was about money. And it was, and he went into, it's Pop House, it's not Gene and Paul and
Right.
blah, 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 blah.
Well,
blah.
that's kind of what you thought anyway.
But I think that's a good sign for all of us. I think that's a good sign because if it's about money, the deal will get done.
Yeah,
at
the
some
closer it
point.
gets, the deal will get done.
So that was the first thing. The second thing, Eddie was on a roll. He and maybe I'm an idiot, and if I am, I don't know. Oh, I shouldn't say that, but if I'm wrong about this, guys, drop this in the comments below. Eddie completely outed Ace Frehley that he wears a wig.
Ooh.
Now, don't get me wrong. Anybody who looks at Ace Frehley knows he wears a wig. But he just threw it out there, and he said that Ace...
Yeah, but he looks less of like, to me, Ace looks less of looking like he wears a wig than Gene.
No, you got to look at, if you look at pictures of Ace from like
Really?
10 years ago, and you look from pictures of Ace today, your hair doesn't all of a sudden.
Yeah, I don't think I ever want to see Ace bald. I really don't want to see that.
And I don't either. And I'm by no means knocking Ace in any way. I absolutely think Ace should wear the wig.
Well, you got an image to keep up. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. I wish I had an image to keep up, but I don't. Thank God. But maybe, you know what, guys? If we get to 100,000 subscribers, I'll wear a wig.
No, I'm not shaving my head. Sorry.
Look, this ain't throwing Eddie under the bus. It definitely ain't throwing Ace under the bus. I was just a little shocked. Allegedly, according to Eddie Trunk, Ace has come out publicly and spoken about it. I've just never heard it. So if you've heard it, if you've heard this story and you knew Ace wore a wig, you knew, not you thought, but you knew, drop it in the comments below. If you know where you found it out, please drop it in the comments below because I want to find it and read it or watch it or listen to it because I've never heard it before.
I got to think most of these people over 65, 70 that are still doing this stuff, I would imagine very few of them still have a full head of hair. A lot of them are doing it, with wigs and.
What did I watch? I watched the video. Oh my God. I watched the video of Black and Blue playing a live concert, and Jamie St. James has a bandana.
He used to have a lot big freaking hair.
But the bandana's a dead giveaway,
Yeah.
Brett Michaels.
Yep.
It's a dead giveaway. I mean, and I don't think I don't know, maybe they deny it. I think they just don't talk about it. And you know what? I think as a fan, we don't really want to know.
I don't, yeah. I mean, it's got to be hard. I mean, your persona's out there for so long, and then all of a sudden, it's not like they just let it all of a sudden, you see the hair receding over time. They've always had that look. Now all of a sudden, yeah, I don't need to
I mean, I don't remember whether Eddie said it or maybe I don't remember if Eddie said it or not, but I've heard that Paul got plugs. He doesn't wear a wig. He's got plugs. Good for him. Good for you, Paul. Again, if I was Paul Stanley, I would not allow myself to go bald.
Yeah, I can get that money, sure.
Until or unless I wanted to.
Right.
Now, let's go back to the Paul Stanley podcast on Artist Friendly.
Okay.
I never watched that podcast before, but whichever Madden brother does it, because it's driving me crazy right now. I thought he did a really good job. He interviews like a fan, which I appreciate. And I can't say that there was much really newsworthy until they brought up KISS, Cruise, Landlocked in Vegas, and that gave me the cold sweats. Because Paul made one statement. We're going to play the songs that we always play. And I went, oh my God, please no. Please don't do that. But that's what he said. So I'm a little concerned at that because I'm on record And I think you agree. And God, I hope the Hooligans agree. The last thing that we want to hear is the same set list that we've been listening to for like 25 years.
Well,
Please do not subject us to that.
Right.
I mean, when it comes to the acoustic set, if they want to play unplugged from start to finish, I think I would be okay with that.
Yep.
But
Because at least you get a different version of the songs.
As far as the electric set goes, please don't do that. Yes, we know you're going to play Shout It Out Loud, Detroit Rock City, Rock and Roll All Night. I'm okay with that.
Well, I think me and you are on record saying we want them to play the non-makeup era stuff.
I just want them to play something. I want most of that set list to be things that they have not played over the last 25, 30 years. I don't really care what it is. I mean, if Paul or Gene want a set list from me, call me. I'll hook you up with one of them. It'll be crazy, trust me. But just don't play the same old songs. You know, play Heaven's on Fire,
Two-timer, Ladies' Room.
Yeah, you can play them.
A Million to One.
A Million to One. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I've had enough. Into the Fire.
Yeah, do that. Yeah.
Please, I mean, if they went all non-makeup, I would be, if they went all non-makeup.
When You Wish Upon a Star. I mean, come on.
No. Gene, please don't.
You know what? If you play Wish Upon a Star, you can have a rock and roll party.
No. No. That is not even a song.
Did I make a wrong turn?
Yeah, and crashed into a wall. So that's really the only thing that was newsworthy to me from the Artist Friendly podcast was that he made that statement that scared the death out of me. But please don't play all the same songs. Please don't. I appreciate it.
It'll take away if it's all the carbon copy, it'll definitely take away from the experience. But Black and Blue, Quarantine, hopefully not, that stuff will make up for it. But if they're keeping it fresh and playing some stuff we haven't heard in a long time live, that'd be really good.
I mean, like I said, go with all the non-makeup songs. I would be okay with that. Start with Detroit Rock City, throw in Shout It Out Loud. Play me Rock and Roll All Night to end the show. Everything in the middle of that can be non-makeup music, and I'd be perfectly happy with that. I mean, I would hope for the good songs. But even if they were shitty songs that came from them records, Cadillac Dreams, I would be okay with that. I mean, it's not on my top 100 list of, it's probably not on my top 200 list of KISS songs, but at least it's something new and fresh. And that's all I really
think that there's a large portion of KISS fans that are, KISS Army fans that want to see the non-makeup era celebrated. That would be the best to me. That'd be such a cool way of kind of like paying homage to that.
That's my number one hope. Celebrate the non-makeup era, then celebrate the entire history of KISS. And as far as on the set list, if you're going to play the makeup songs, don't make it the same songs. I don't want to hear Cold Gin again. I don't want to hear Deuce.
You know what? Not for nothing. When they're on tour and they're in concert, they kind of like have to do those songs. This should be the kind of experience where they don't really have to do it. You know what I mean? They don't have to play the stapled songs. They should be able to feel like because I know you've seen video, and I've seen video of the cruises where they are playing some songs that they don't normally do in concert. I've seen some footage of that. So if it is technically a cruise on land, hopefully they're going to use that philosophy and do that.
I would really hope so. I mean, that's what I'm hoping for. I mean, number one, and I think this goes for the cruise too, but if you're going on a cruise or you're going to Vegas, you are not the passive, everyday Kiss fan. I would think that you are a diehard fanatic. And I do believe that the majority of the diehard fanatics want to hear I or want to hear turn on the night
Hmm?
or
No, they got
thrills
plenty of
in the
songs.
night.
Yeah, they got plenty of songs to choose from.
Right. Yep. All right. You got anything else?
No, I mean, I'll be waiting for the next interview.
Yeah. You and me both. We'll be waiting for the next. Gene hasn't been on a podcast in a couple weeks.
Maybe he'll show up with Eric Singer on the next one.
Yeah, I highly doubt that. It's funny because I'd love to see Gene go on a podcast and start to spin the whole change and see how he spins that. From where this is a Kiss Army thing, we're just guests that are going to pop in and play a few tunes, to this is a Kiss cruise landlocked in
Right.
Vegas and we have a 15 set electric set and we're going to do that. I have a feeling that Paul and Gene have finally gotten on the same page, and I'd just love to hear how Gene wiggles to Paul's page.
Yeah, I would think there's probably at least 3 or 4 more interviews from both of them before at least before we go.
I'm waiting for the Gene one. If you're listening to us on any of the podcast platforms, please leave us a review. And if you just found us, check out our past episodes. If you're watching us on our YouTube channel and you like this episode, please consider hitting the like button, just like him, and leaving us a comment. Hit that subscribe button, just like him, so you don't miss any future episodes, and check out these episodes right here. As always, if you made it this far, thank you for supporting us, and don't forget, if it's too loud, you're too old. Peace out, Hooligan Nation.